What's up, wizards? Today we're going to be looking at TRPC. We're going to be getting you off the ground with TRPC as fast as possible, walking through the quick starts. TRPC is a really cool framework for building full stack applications where you can use TypeScript to link the backend to the front end. So you get beautiful type-safe communication between your front end and your back end for a really low cost. And it's got a reputation for being extremely fast to work with. Yes, I am wearing a scarf. It's snowing.
Dapatkan 3 bulan Spotify Premium hanya 27.500 sekarang dan batalkan kapan saja. Tak ingin ketinggalan lagu-lagu terbaru? Spotify Premium memudahkanmu menelusuri katalog jutaan lagu dengan audio berkualitas tinggi. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
In the UK today, but we persevere. Let's get started. I've taken the minimal example from the docs and I put it here. You can see that it's set up like a little monorepo. We have a client, which is like the front end, and then we have a server, which is like the back end. Let's take a look at this client first. Client, which is like the front end, and then we have a server, which is like the back end. Let's take a look at this client first. We're creating a TRPC proxy client and passing it a type of app router. This app router is coming from the server, and we can command click directly to the server here. This router is coming from the server, and we can command click directly to the server here. This takes us to a type which is the app router. Command click directly to the server here. This takes us to a type which is the app router, which is being derived from our router being created by TRPC. We'll get into what all this means in a minute, but you can start to see what's happening. We're creating a router, turning that router into a type, and then feeding that router into our front end. This is TRPC's magic sauce. By using TypeScript as the link between your front end and back end, you get really quick development cycles. I've started running a dev server here, and that's going to call main. I'm just running it inside the terminal here, not in a front end. But this code is perfectly valid on the front end too. We're calling client.greet.query. So we're currently sending
Dapatkan 3 bulan premium hanya 27.500 sebelum berakhir. Batalkan kapan saja. Musik tak perlu terhenti ketika internet mati. Dengan Spotify Premium, kamu bisa download lagu yang kamu suka dan mendengarkannya secara offline di mana saja. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Matt, let's send Stefan instead. And now our backend is saying hello, Stefan. Let's look at this code side by side. We've got the client on the left and the server on the right.
Premium memudahkanmu menelusuri katalog jutaan lagu dengan audio berkualitas tinggi. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Tes. Oke, masuk suara. So, to start, this API will contain free endpoints with this TypeScript signature. Create outer instances. Berarti itu yang ini. Ya kan? Oh ini tuh di sini cok. Ya kan? Dari fiturnya itu. Iya, ini terus lihat. Langsung masuk konsol. Formatter Mozilla integrasi Mozilla. done only the once per backend. For the usually router and procedure routers that can be used throughout the router. The actual initialized command router instance, commonly referred to as app router, in which we'll later add procedures to. Lastly, we need to export the type of the router, which will later use on the client side. Alright, I need to export the type of the router. Setup rupanya export type router type signature, not the router itself. Sorry, the type tipenya di klien kan. Oh iya, router. Query procedure, use public procedure with query to add queries to procedure the router. The following creates and create user list that returns user laba. Ini ininya query-nya pakai objek ya. Terus query mutation itu apa ya? Using input parser to validate procedure input. To implement the user ID procedure, we need to accept input from the client. CRPC lets you define input parsers. Type validation sih. Ini udah sama validation ya. Jadi kalau ini nggak true, ini nggak jalan. Maybe. Apa works di compiler doang? I don't know. But this is a
Eksplorasi
function,
lebih banyak
so
musik tanpa
it
iklan yang
will work
mengganggu.
in the
Dengarkan jutaan lagu tanpa iklan dengan
program
Spotify
stream.
Premium sekarang. Dapatkan 3 bulan cuma 27.500 sebelum berakhir. Batalkan kapan saja. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
The input is unknown at this time. A client could have sent us anything, so we won't assume a certain data type. Unknown. Put unknown. If the value is of type string, return it. It will now be inferred as a string. It's a return file. Ini ada di handle sama dot. We fokus juga grafik lah kan. User, wait, blah blah blah. Bibi di sini tuh tadi mutation query itu mutation coba ya add query kalau ini sama bisa. What's the difference? Query procedure ini masih mutation procedure. Oh ini ada mutation. Similar to GraphQL, CRPC make a distinction between query and mutation procedure. The way procedure works on the server doesn't change much between a query and a mutation. The method name is different, and the way that the client will use this procedure changes, but everything else is the same. Berarti ngaruhnya ke kliennya, makainya gimana? Let's add user create mutation by adding yang lalalala. Sama kan? Sama cok. Tuh. Text ini baru SQLite-nya kan? Iya. Oh iya. Kenapa dikasih nama CTX ya? Kok udah ada ini? Ngerti sampai sini. Bisa masuk sini. Kayak kenempel gitu sepaket cok. Dari mana ini? Pertanyaan bodoh anjing. This is gRPC query code, and the database is using SQLite. Why is mutation? How is mutation? Syntax props. SQLite kali ya. Mana CTX ya langsung. Config argument function callback kan. Oh ini bukan cok. Override for jQuery hooks. Oh iya kan gRPC. Jadi kali ya, singkat gua, build on top of using jQuery. Invalidable.
Resapi alunan musik yang kamu sukai. Download untuk menikmati playlist dalam mode offline kemanapun kamu pergi, atau putar ulang lagu favoritmu berulang kali tanpa batas. Dengarkan semua musik sepuasnya tanpa iklan di Spotify Premium. Ketuk banner untuk mempelajari selengkapnya.
service director. Anjing. Hah? DP. Ops. Kamu kan? Tuh, server DB. DB-nya Drizzle. So, why is not called? Kenapa nggak ini DB aja gitu? Kenapa X gitu? Kita naik ke GPT-nya. Your app is Drizzle. I wanted to ask something stupid. Why is the database X name CircuitX not DB? So like turn on the search because I think they not trained for this question. Interpretation stands for context and is designed to hold various resources and utilities that might be needed across different procedures, such as database connection, authentication details, and other shared devices. Clean separation of concerns and enhance the modularity and sustainability of your code. Terus di reroute ini kan ada nih create TRPC router when context right. Kayaknya gue ada kayak nemu project lain.
What's up, wizards? Today
Anjing, ukurannya jadi muka lu, cok. Gak kalah copyright kan? Segede gini. We also export our content provider from this file. habis dari drizzle kali. Itu dari drizzle. Drizzle baru ngasih tahu kalau gitu. Skill like. Oh, dari sini. Baju yang mana tuh?
Dari dalam lemari.
Oh, itu yang baru sekali pakai. Kayak ini mah, baju kan di sini nih misalnya atau di mana? Yang kemarin dipakai buat besok. Cuman kayak bangun tidur, Bang Sopin udah datang tuh. Jadi kayak lupa nggak inget dulu langsung ngambil baru gitu. Ternyata pas udah ini, oh ada juga ini baju yang kemarin gitu. Bersih, makanya aku masukin. Gak aku gantung, aku masukin. Soalnya benar-benar pakai bentar banget. Minyak dia. Mau masukin ya? Tuh, baju aku jadi bantal. Gangguin deh. Kenapa? Lucu apa kalau dia udah begini nih? Gini-gini, tetap diam. Itu klasik. Kalau dia tidur gini nih, duk. Diam dia. Dia kayak nyatin tuh apaan sih? Kan kalau masih sadar mah digitu-gituin. Main dia kan ngiranya kan. Ya, coba ya.
Mainkan semua di Spotify Premium selama 3 bulan seharga 27.500 sekarang dan batalkan kapan saja. Biarkan musikmu terus mengalun. Download lagu favoritmu dan dengarkan bebas iklan dengan Spotify Premium. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Bener-bener kayak kira kabur gitu ya. Kira kabur dari duitnya.
Baru ini ngeliat anjing masalah napas terus sakit loh nih.
Ya
Orang
orang
itu kaca ini gimana mau diapain, mau diganti mau diapa, bahaya itu.
agak
Nah
rapat.
gimana enggak,
Soalnya kalau udah kegeser baru gampang lah.
bahaya itu kalau kena tangan. Astaga, kalau nggak dibalik aja mesinnya, kalau nggak ini di sana. Gampang.
Ya susah naiknya.
Bukan itu masalahnya, ininya loh, ini kan tajam.
Satu
Teteh
tajam.
aja kena kapan hari.
Kok bisa?
Iyalah dia mau beresin mesinnya masa. Ya tangannya. Balik aja terus loh. Kalau kamu kan masih aman, ini kan bahaya. Sekarang.
Itu stikernya berarti.
Stikernya kenapa? Stikernya
Kan jadi kebalik.
ya, fungsi stikernya apa itu?
Gak apa-apa, jadi stiker kebalik aja.
Aduh.
Udah sih. Lanjut. Dadah.
Dapatkan 3 bulan hanya 27.500 sekarang dan batalkan kapan saja. Manjakan telingamu dengan Spotify Premium. Dengan jutaan lagu dan audio berkualitas tinggi, musikmu tak mengenal batas. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Chase away my heart and heartache. Run me over, throw me over, cast me
Rp27.500 sekarang dan batalkan kapan saja. Jadilah bintang utama dengan Spotify Premium. Pilih, buat, dan dengarkan playlistmu tanpa gangguan, bahkan offline. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Jahe bro. Habis dari my God, my world, you will be my God, my God, my God. Smoking cigarettes on the roof. You look so pretty and I love this feeling. We were looking down, we're not lying. At least where is my pot? Saya sampai mana? Nanya ini kan. What is technically possible to import the data with some zero? Ayo, terus Pak. What the differences between mutation and query in public procedure? What? Designed for fetching data without causing side effects, they are read-only operations, ideal for retrieving information from the server. Step modified are such as creating, updating, deleting records on the server's thing. Okay. This should be query. This should be mutation, right? Pause. Fine. The sun is above you. Who else could be? What the first feel like I could see. Really devil. Make the code base more understandable and implementable. Beda. Oh ini langsung ya. Up router. Karena semua udah diganti code route, saya malas ganti lagi. Router. Ini kode di split aja. But why there's create CRPC router and passing an object argument of the table function query routes maybe a route and post router is making this again and having this. Gue harus ngapain sih? Update reset tadi. Now the code is broken. Benar tuh.
Dapatkan 3 bulan Spotify Premium
Ya,
hanya
itu dipakai di
27.500 sekarang dan batalkan kapan saja. Manjakan telingamu dengan Spotify Premium. Dengan jutaan lagu dan audio berkualitas tinggi, musikmu tak mengenal batas. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Pretty face with pretty bad dreams.
now that we have animation. You now have access to it with the use tools.
Light struck from the lemon tree. What if I'd never seen hysterical light from Eugene? Lemon yogurt. Remember I pulled at your shirt. I dropped the ashtray on the floor. I just wanted to be near you. Emerald bark wonders never cease. The man who taught me to swim, he couldn't quite say my first name. Like a father, he led community water along my head, and he called me Subaru. And now I wanna be near you. Since I was old enough to speak, I've said it with alarm. Some part of me was lost in your sleep,
Okay.
where you hid your
We're going to be looking at TR. We're creating a TRPC proxy client and passing it a type of app router. This app router is coming from the server, and we can command click directly to the server here. This takes us to a type which is the app router, which is being derived from our router being created by TRPC. We'll get into what all this means in a minute, but you can start to see what's happening. We're creating a router, turning that router into
and all the machines that made a mess. Far away the falcon flew. Now I wanna be near you. What's left is only bittersweet. For the rest of my life, admitting the past is behind me. Now I'm drunk and afraid, wishing the world
Gue baru nama temen.
Well, I got nothing to prove. Well, I got nothing to prove.
And terus
I forgive you, mother. I can hear you, and I long to be near you. But every road leads to an
Iki apa cok?
Yes, every road leads to an end. Your
Equal.
apparition passes through
Kenapa harus?
me in the willows and five red hands. You'll never
Kenapa
see
cok
us
pakai
again.
tulisan tuh?
You'll never see us again.
Begini, ya kan? Itu juga lu bisa Iki gini.
Ingin mengeksplorasi musik
Ya
baru?
bre,
Shuffle Pintar bisa menambahkan rekomendasi lagu ke playlist kalau kamu memakai Spotify Premium. Kamu juga bisa memulai dengar bareng dan mengundang temanmu untuk membuat dan menambahkan lagu ke playlist bersama dengan fitur lewati dan ulangi tanpa batas. Ketuk banner untuk mempelajari selengkapnya.
I remember you couldn't stop crying. You found me when I thought I was dying. Believe me when I say I tried so hard to change all the crazy shit I made you do. The long nights you held me through. Believe me when I say I could never be saved. Yeah, I tried to get it off my mind, to leave it all behind. Don't wanna make it worse, I'm
oh
gonna
yang
make
cutut
it worse.
begini.
Yeah, I tried to get it off my mind, to leave it all behind.
Error di depan. Justru sustainable. Ya, itu coba isi. Sobat gue.
I remember you stayed up all night
Next om.
to make sure I was
Lagi anjing kan ngapain?
Believe me when I say I would.
I'm not doing it from Firefox.
Oh, we got him! Oh, dang,
dude.
we should have done this whole
Dude.
stream from Firefox. What
dude,
were we thinking?
if we would have gone from Firefox to do this, it would have been hilarious.
Oh.
All right, let's see. Engage. Let's see. Hold on. Violate the copyright, trademark, patent, or other intellectual property rights of others.
Yeah, I tried to get it off my mind, to leave it all behind. Don't wanna make it worse, I'm gonna make it worse. Yeah, I tried to get it off my mind, to leave it all behind. Don't wanna make it worse, I'm gonna make it
What's up, wizards? Today we're going to be looking at TRPC. We're going to be getting you off the ground with TRPC as fast as possible walking through the quick starts. TRPC is a really cool framework for building full stack applications where you can use TypeScript to link the backend to the front end. So you get beautiful type-safe communication between your front end and your back end for a really low cost. And it's got a reputation for being extreme from the server. And we can get into what all this is here, not in a front end, but this gets turned into an actual server is with this create HTTP server, which comes from the front end. But this code is perfectly valid on the front end too. We're calling client.greet.query. So we're currently sending Matt on the left by saying say goodbye query, and then you have to pass it a string. Let's change the implementation so it says goodbye again, and now we're calling goodbye here and it's saying goodbye again. T we create here comes with the default procedure, which by convention is called the public procedure. This is because we aren't doing any checking of this procedure. It's just public, open to anyone. We then extend that procedure with input, and this lets us pass a validation function that's going to check what we're getting is correct. By far the most popular way of declaring this is using Zod. We can import Zod here, and then instead of all of this custom function stuff, we can just now on our client we'll be asked to specify mutate instead of query. So I think at this point we've got a good sense of what TRPC is and how it can help. Now I'm going to show you all the other things that TRPC can do just from looking at safe. If we feel that the thing we're creating is more of a mutation than a query, let's say we're changing something in the database, then we can use mutation instead. And now on our client we'll be asked to specify mutate instead of query. So I think at this point we've got a good sense of what TRPC protected procedure is using is auth. So now any protected procedure is going to basically check that the user has a session. And inside this mutation, you get another field which is called context or CTX. The shape of this context
Crossover gue di mana ya? Timing, the word for timing was execution and adding exception. The development. Okay. You can move this if you don't like it, but you can hold tabs unmoved.
inside this mutation, you get another middleware. You can thing we're creating is more of a mutation than a and our client will be asked to specify mutate instead of query.
Jadi guys, tahu di playernya mutet apa ini apa query.
So I think at this point we've got a good sense of what TRP I would use it, especially if I
Dengarkan 3 bulan Spotify Premium hanya 27.500 sekarang dan batalkan kapan saja. Kamu bisa menciptakan keseruan pesta lebih leluasa. Mendengarkan bebas iklan sampai download offline, semua tempat adalah panggungmu sebagai DJ setiap harinya. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Komen.
I'm drawn to the blood, the flight of a one-winged dove. How did this happen? How did this happen? The strength of his arm, my love
Ada algoritma.
me off guard. How head of a rabbit? How head of a rabbit? For my prayer has always been love. What did I do to deserve this? With blood on my sleeve,
3 bulan premium hanya 27.500 sebelum berakhir. Batalkan kapan saja. Musik tak perlu terhenti ketika internet mati. Dengan Spotify Premium, kamu bisa download lagu yang kamu suka dan mendengarkannya secara offline di mana saja. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
It was a bad idea. Calling you up was such a bad idea. 'Cause now I'm even more lost. It was a bad idea to think you were the one. Was such a bad idea. 'Cause now everything's wrong. You put your hands under my shirt, undid my bra and said these words. Darling, you're so pretty, it hurts. Push me up against my wall, threw my clothes down on the floor. Darling, are you ready for more? It was a bad idea. Calling you up was such a bad idea. I'm totally fucked. It was a bad idea to think I could stop. Was such a bad idea. I can't get enough. It was a bad idea. Meeting you so late was such a bad idea. 'Cause I can't think straight. It was a bad idea to bring you back home.
Bitcoin naik, mulai terbang.
I need to be alone. You put your hands under my shirt, undid my bra and said these words. Darling, you're so pretty, it hurts.
Oh,
Push me up against my wall, threw my clothes down on the floor. Darling, are you ready for more? It was a bad idea. Calling you up was such a bad idea. I'm totally fucked. It was a bad idea to think I could stop. Was such a bad idea.
And here we are, a working homepage. Very simple. You can change the contents to make it even simpler, just to make sure all these pieces work. Let's do it. npm create T3 app at latest. We're not going to be using the whole T3 stack, but there's a lot of good stuff in here that will make things like ESLint prettier and environment variable management much easier for any Next.js app. I'm naming this project Drive Tutorial. If you can, name it the same thing. It just makes a lot of random small things easier. Got TypeScript. We'll be using Tailwind, of course. I would like to use tRPC, but for this tutorial, I think it's simpler to not, so I'm just going to hit no here. Not a big deal if you hit yes and you want to use it for some things, but the goal of making this as simple as possible, I'll be avoiding it now. Speaking of making things as simple as possible, I wouldn't wish Nextauth on many people today. We'll be using Clark instead. We're going to pick Drizzle for the database. Next app router, obviously. What database provider? This is an interesting question. I'm going to pick SQLite because it's the simplest solution, and we'll move this all over to single store in just a little bit. Should we initialize? Sure. Yes. Yep. Awesome. Look at that. Now we are inside of the project. We will open it up. Awesome. Look at that. Now we are
Dia nggak dia push DB-nya.
inside of the project. We will open it up in our editor. And look at that. We got all sorts of fun things here. I could do an overview. I don't want to distract you guys too much with it. The few things that matter over a more traditional create next app code base are that we have the env.js file. This file uses the T3OSS environment variable package, T3env. It just makes it so you won't run into that wonderful problem where there's something missing from your environment variables and everything goes wrong in deployment with weird, obscure errors. Now you'll get an error on build, like it always should have been. This package is great, really happy we have it. But most of our time is going to be spent in app/page and all of the things that come from it. So let's make sure this all works as expected. pnpm run dev. Hover over the browser. I have a local host open here. Let's refresh it. And here we are, a working homepage. It's very simple. You can change the contents to make it even simpler,
Aku
just to
pakai
make sure
tRPC.
all these pieces work. Sup nerds, you're subscribed, right? The add apostrophe here is because technically you're not supposed to put what's up, nerds. You have status, git add, git commit, init, and git push. Oh no, we don't have a repo for it yet.
Yeah, me too. Right.
And here we are, a working homepage. It's very simple. Let's no, we don't have a repo for it yet. There's a couple ways we can fix it. Can click the little new button. I want a new state. Hit create. I don't know why this is second because I feel like, yeah, it is what it is. We're going to grab that, just hit copy on the second section here. Go back to your terminal, paste, enter. As long as you have your GitHub set up properly.
Suck the breath from my open mouth. Never
This will now push. Now we have this all up on GitHub. Let's making a new site. You're off. Hard at all. Sign in if you haven't. Thankfully, GitHub is an option. Making a new site is not that hard at all. Import an existing project. GitHub. Triple checks that you're off. And now we can search for our repo. Again, this is why having the same name makes things a little bit easier. Drive-tutorial. And here we are, drive tutorial. PS stuff, site name. I doubt this will be available for y'all because I'm taking it, but come up with your own clever name for your site.
Go login.
Feels like I've known you my whole life. I can see right through your lies. I don't know where we're going, but I like to be by your side. If you could tell me how you're feeling, maybe we get through this undefeated. Holding on for so long.
Man, what, bro?
Dapatkan 3 bulan Spotify Premium hanya 27.500 sebelum berakhir. Musik tak perlu terhenti ketika internet mati. Dengan Spotify Premium,
Don't know
kamu
when
bisa download lagu yang kamu suka dan mendengarkannya secara offline di mana saja. Ketuk banner untuk selengkapnya.
Base directory, none of this needs to be changed because it's smart enough to know that we're using Next.js. Environment variables, we can just fill them in so we don't get a build error. I'm just going to hop over to our .env here. We see this is the database URL by default. We'll absolutely be changing that in the near future. But for now, we can paste it in, make sure the key and the value are correct. Does match exactly. Deploy, drive tutorial. Obviously in the near future we'll have things in here that are more secrets, not just like random paths to files. So for now it's okay that you guys are seeing this. In the near future you'll be getting all of my secrets that'll have to reset before the video goes live, so you guys can't take advantage of all the services I set up. But it is important to know anything in here should be considered private. It also should not be committed. That's why I just entered it manually. Environments are not meant to be committed. They are meant to hold things that are specific to your deployment, most of which are private and not things you would want to have shared. If you do want it public because you want the user to have access to the data, then next public needs to be the prefix for the environment variable. Looks like we're deployed now. Let's go take a look. Site overview, drive tutorial, and look at that. We are live. What's cool about platforms like Netlify is now that this is linked to my GitHub repo, all I have to do is save a change and push, and we'll automatically get those changes deployed to our users with no additional work on our part. I think that's great. Also, if we make pull requests because we want to try out new things or, you're working with a team, all pull...
To tutorial yang ada CLI.
Requests will also get their own builds right in line in the pull request itself, which is so handy when you're working on big projects with a lot of people. Being able to test the things that they actually built without having to download all the code yourself, spin it up, and play around is so nice. Having that just baked in for free is still unbelievable to me. Normally, I would go straight into plugging the database in, but honestly, I want this to look a little bit better. So I'm going to skip to that part. We're going to use V0 for this because it makes things relatively easy to set up. I am on a premium account, but everything you're about to see is free, and I will be sharing the actual environment I create so you can copy from it directly. V0 uses ShadCN heavily. If you're not already familiar with I create, I am on a premium account, but everything you're about to see is free, and I will be sharing the actual environment I create so you can copy from it directly. V0 uses ShadCN heavily. If you're not already familiar, it's a phenomenal open source component library where the components aren't npm installed, they're actually copy-pasted into your code base. It's built on top of Tailwind and Radix, and I have been so happy with it. It's going to make stuff like what we're doing here way easier. So we're going to ask it to do what we want, which is make a basic Google Drive clone UI. Use mock data. The mock data callout is important because we want it to be easy to get it working and see it, but also have a clear point for us to reference as we build our own data model. Folders should be openable, and files should be direct links to the file. Make sure to include a mock upload button. We'll see how it does on the first run. What's cool with tools like this is even if they're not quite right the first time, you can edit the code or you can ask it to fix its stuff. So we will see how it does here. Looks like it's making folders as well as creating files here. I've actually quite enjoyed using tools like this, not because I'm too lazy to write all the code, but it's actually just nice to try out different UIs more quickly. If I want to try out different ways to structure things and I'm not quite sure what I want yet, a tool like this can be great, even if I don't use any of the code, just to get an idea of what it could look like. So here, I actually don't like the UI we got. I want it to be a more traditional list view, and I hate having the folders on the side. Don't love this rendition. Here's some things to change. Dark mode by default. Remove the sidebar. Folder view should be a list. Include breadcrumbs on top for navigation. If you're not familiar, breadcrumbs are the little thing on the top of a folder system when you're navigating through that show you all the different places you can go up or down. So you could say this, for example, would be breadcrumbs, where the top is project, and then you have Google Drive clone as the layer right underneath. That looks significantly closer to what I had in mind. And now we can see they have the breadcrumbs on top, you can navigate between different things. That was a bad direct link, but it's doing what it's supposed to. It all appears, for the most part here, to work. Pretty handy. So how do we actually get this into our code base? We have this folder here, this file that has all the stuff in it. We could copy paste it, but we're not going to have a lot of these components. We're not going to have the icon library being used here. We're not going to have button. We're not going to have almost any of this. Easiest way is to copy the code by clicking the little add to code base button. Gives you a ShadCN command to run. You hop over here, you paste, press enter. It's going to ask if I want to make these changes, override these things. Like the New York colors, I hate the gray and the zinc colors. The bluish that they end up in is horrible, so we'll be going with neutral. We'll use CSS variables. This is going to error because it's missing some of the packages. Totally fine. I hit yes to override the page file because it has no contents I care about. Normally, I would restart the project, but I'm honestly curious if it just works. So we're going to give it a go and see what happens. I cannot find module for page, route not found, /page. Cool, so it does break. Clear, npm run dev, and if all goes well, this should just work. Oh, it's unhappy because of things that it expects to be in page that aren't. Oh, I know what happened. This happens half the time. Proof that none of these tools are even close to perfect. It made a folder named app and put the styles in there, but then also updated this one too. And I don't know which I'm actually supposed to be using here, which is quite annoying. At layer base, we'll use the default ones that come with ShadCN. I'm going to delete this app folder. Make sure if you're using a source subdirectory that you're not also using the app root directory because of the conflict that will really confuse Next.js into not knowing what to do or what to render. I'm going to clear, just in case, if you ever run into weird things with Next, rmrf, the .next directory, npm run dev, And now, look at that. All working as expected. You'll notice the navigation is occurring in the page rather than in the URL bar. Like if I refresh, it's going to bring me back to the root because we haven't hoisted this navigation up to be part of the URL params. We'll do that in a bit. Don't worry. We could get fancy and do nested routing there, but we're just going to use file IDs and folder IDs. So let's get this, as always, committed and pushed so we know it works. I'm going to do something interesting. I want you guys to see the branching workflow. So we're going to make this a branch. Theo/new UI. Git commit. Normally when I do changes like this, I'll git add-p so I can do a little short code review. But in order to keep it brief and to get this onto GitHub as quickly as possible, I just did git add-a. Now we're going to commit new UI mocks for drive. Git push. I have a really fun flag in my git config. On push, I have auto set remote true and default current. This makes it so I don't have to like git remote at origin or change anything when I'm just trying to push a branch. It's one of those little things that just made my life a lot better. I would recommend setting that up so when you git push, you don't have to do any additional stuff. Now, we go back over to GitHub and create a pull request, new UI mocks for drive, create PR, and in just a moment, you'll see the magic of platforms like Netlify. And there we are. Look at that. The Netlify bot showed up. It is now doing a deployment for just this branch. You can see all of the things being configured and handled here. So cool that I didn't have to set up anything. I didn't click any buttons. Just by importing the repo on Netlify, we now have automatic preview environments for all pull requests. I could wait here. I could set up my own CI. I could review it. I could have an AI review it. You get the idea. But we actually should look at the code. I try to look at all the code one more time before we actually merge. Wherever that time is, it could be during a -p, or it could be somewhere like this. All looks good. We added the React slot package from Radix UI, class variance authority, which allows you to have multiple different class names that conflict in groups around them. With Tailwind, we have CLSX, which lets you turn class names on and off depending on conditions. Lucide, which is a package of icons. Tailwind merge, which makes sure if your specific class names conflict in Tailwind, they're handled. As well as Tailwind animate, which will make animations a lot easier. Here we can see the overhauled page TSX file. It is use client. We will probably move that to use server so we can get some server data, but it all looks fine. Here we have the button component, which comes straight out of ShadCN. Nothing to see there. For the most part, things in components/UI, I don't find myself needing to review very thoroughly. We have our mock data, which looks like a fine starting point, has type folder, type file. Both are being sourced together. We'll figure out how we want to model the data in the near future. We have source libutils. That's just all part of the ShadCN stuff. We have our new global CSS for styles. Still includes the Tailwind stuff, but they have the new base layer for root and dark mode. All seems fine to me. So I can't approve my own changes, probably for the better. Oh no, what went wrong with our deployment? Files defined but never used, indexes defined but never used. Here's a quick, super hot Theo take. I don't like having my preview builds blocked by small one-off issues that exist in our code base. So if we're importing file here, but we're not using it, I don't think that should block me from deploying. This is just a type error effectively. So what I like to do is inside of my next config, I turn off two things. The first is we want ESLint. One of these is ignore during builds, true. And there's a similar thing for TypeScript. Ignore build errors, true. This might seem terrible. Why are we turning these off? Well, honestly, we'll just add CI later on. I could add it now if I really wanted. You just make a .github folder, copy paste any of the example TypeScript checkers, and let a CI check. Make sure your types are good and you're not making any dumb mistakes before you deploy. But for now, I'll just do this because I know the code is fine. Git add-p. Save. Apparently, I saved the file, which caused a lot of things to be reordered. Totally fine with me. We'll commit both. Disable ESLint and TS during builds. Some prettier changes. Git push. And now this should hopefully work. Hopefully this helps emphasize what I mean about trying to get preview deploys up quickly. Because now, since something went wrong, but we had a deploy that worked before, we knew it had to have been something that changed since our first deployment. In this case, the change was simple. It was a type error that shouldn't, in my opinion, have blocked build, but now that is handled. And just because it's important, we'll start that CI. We'll do .github, new folder in GitHub named workflows, and in here a file named ci.yaml. I already have contents from my pickthing repo, so I'll paste this. In order to make sure you're not just copying code that you don't understand, we'll go through it really quick. This is a YAML file, yet another markup language. This YAML file describes what GitHub should do whenever we push. So on push, we have a job that we run named build. It runs on Ubuntu, and it has steps. First, it checks out the code using the official GitHub checkout action. We then install dependencies. npm install -g pnpm. This is to set up the pnpm global. I'm sure there's an image that has that already set up. I'm lazy. This works fine. Then we pnpm install. We then copy the env example files, because if we don't do that, then the build will fail because there are environment variables missing. We then run the type check, pnpm type check, and we run lint, pnpm lint. I believe both of these should already be in here thanks to create T3 app. Looks like they are. Super handy. And that means I can set this up real quick. Git status, git add -a. -a will always grab new files, whereas -p won't. Git commit -m ci. And now, if we go back to GitHub, we'll see my new CI here. You'll also see that the preview build succeeded, and I can click on this link here to see my preview deployment up and alive on an actual URL. This isn't running locally on my dev machine. This is an actual environment on the web that I could send the link to a coworker or somebody else doing a test. So nice to have an actual usable thing that I can go play with to see if these changes that my team made